Hello, everyone. Wonderful to connect with you today. It's a big day for me. I'm remembering a moment in the television show The Office where Michael Scott, the boss of The Office, walks in to work and realizes that he's way in over his head in credit card debt. And not knowing exactly how to deal with that, he gets some advice on one possible route out, walks in front of everyone that he works with, and just yells, I declare bankruptcy. And um, even though this is my fifth book that is coming out today, How to Love Yourself and Sometimes Other People, I have to admit, I still don't know what one is supposed to do on this big day. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, I declare book launch. So this is the book launch day. This is the day that How to Love Yourself and Sometimes Other People comes into bookstores. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this particular topic because I think it's a juicy one. Obviously, I do since I wrote a book on it. But the reason I wrote a book on it stems back many years. Back to when The Buddha Walks into a Bar came out. And I was traveling on that book tour, and I came through Boston, and I led a workshop, and I did something that I often do now, which is I did a full day of teachings, and at the end, I put out a bowl and invited people to write down a challenge or an obstacle that they were working with, and then we would sit in a circle, and I would pull these challenges out anonymously and read them, and we would contemplate them as a group, and then I would shut up and let the group offer their wisdom. And there were wonderful questions that came up, challenges that came up, but one I pulled out, and as soon as I read it, it broke my heart. And it was someone who said, my boyfriend has never told me that he loves me. I don't feel worthy of his love. And as soon as I read that, I just felt for this person. And the group had some good advice in terms of communication and relating to your partner and things like that. But it stuck with me. And I went to another city and pulled out another piece of paper in the midst of all of the various challenges people presented. And someone said, I don't feel whole enough to be loved. In another city, someone said, I feel broken and that I can't accept someone's love. Someone else said, I'm not worthy of being loved, period. And that was so on the spot. Like, that was the one that I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. A lot of times we don't even feel worthy of love. Why is that? In my own understanding, we have this whole conglomeration of movies and commercials and billboards and the internet, and it sort of forms into one societal whisper that comes into our ear and says, you need more. You need something external to yourself if you're actually going to be okay. We have this example of the Buddha, who was raised in absolute luxury. A gentleman who really had it all and was really cloistered from any sense of pain growing up. Whatever the version of the iPad was back then, 2,600 years ago, he had 3 of them. So he was surrounded by all this, but then he realized that in order to rule his kingdom, he's going to have to engage the people beyond his palace walls. So his father, in the hope of sort of still keeping him somewhat cloistered, asked everyone to sort of like step aside and only presented like the good-looking people and the people who were well-to-do and things like that. But out of the corner of his eye in his journeys, the future Buddha saw someone who was older, someone who had sickness, someone who had died, and his heart was broken. He had never seen suffering before. Can you imagine being in your late 20s and having never realized those basic truths of old age, sickness, and death? So he, in his final journey out of the palace grounds, saw an ascetic and realized that there is a whole spiritual world out there, and he decided to pursue it, and swung on the other end of the pendulum, literally starving himself, torturing himself in the name of spirituality. And eventually he cycled back and took a little bit of sustenance, a little bit of food, and meditated, doing a practice that we'll do just in a minute. And through this practice, he was able to wake up in a very big way. Because through this practice, the more he looked, the more he realized that at his core, he wasn't basically messed up. He was basically good. He was basically awake. And that's what we talk about when we talk about the Buddha attaining enlightenment or nirvana. And he's not alone. He's not some alien being that came down to save us. He's not a savior. He's a human being like you and me. So we have the same potential to wake up that he does. What does any of this have to do with loving yourself and sometimes other people? In my experience, meditation says it's okay to look directly at yourself. For those of you who have worked with me in the past, you know that one of my favorite words for meditation is gom, G-O-M, which can be translated as become familiar with or familiarization. And it's the idea that we can just become familiar with every aspect of who we are, the creative and joyful and full of potential parts of ourselves, and the neurotic and confused and parts of ourselves that we might want to often ignore. We can become familiar with all of it. We can sink more into who we naturally are and love ourselves, and from that foundation of loving ourselves, offer more love to others. So let's do the practice together. Please join me. I'm seated on the ground with my legs loosely crossed. But if you are in a chair, you could just place your feet firmly on the ground and sit a little bit away from the back of the chair. Sometimes it helps to just rock a little to find your natural sense of balance, so you're not too far forward and you're not too far back. Feel the weight of your body on the earth. You want to feel relaxed when you sit down to meditate, but also somewhat uplifted and dignified. So from the strong base, we elongate upwards through the spine. Not through the shoulders, through the spine. We relax the muscles in our back and shoulders. We just take our hands and drop them palms down on our thighs. Not only is this a natural spot on which to rest them, this is sometimes referred to as resting energy. So it allows our mind to settle more. Our chin is slightly tucked in. You can bring a sense of relaxation to the muscles in your face, relaxing the muscles around your eyes, and your cheeks, and your jaw. And if that means that your jaw hangs open, that's good. You could even rest your tongue up against the roof of your mouth, allowing for clear breathing. In this particular practice, I'd like to encourage you to just keep your eyes open. We're waking up to all of who we are, so there's no need to block out any of our senses. You can just rest your gaze 2 to 4 feet ahead of you on the ground in a loose and unfocused manner. Now we'll bring our full attention to the breath, our natural cycle of breathing. You don't need to do anything about the breath. You can just allow it to occur. Feel the breath as it enters and then leaves your body. some point, you'll notice that your mind drifts off into thought. This is normal. You're not failing at meditation because you're thinking. In some sense, staying with the breath is only one part of our meditation. The other part is becoming familiar with when we're not with the breath. It's a whole other part of it. So when you drift off into thinking about the past or the future, you're no longer present. Don't berate yourself. Don't perpetuate self-aggression. Just very gently and silently say, thinking. We acknowledge the thought. And then we bring our full attention back to the breath. Okay, you can raise your gaze and connect again. Ending this particular meditation period. It's a short one, but I wanted to just review the overall instructions for what's known as calm abiding, shamatha meditation, because this is such a tool in becoming familiar with, befriending, and then ultimately loving ourselves. And in the book, How to Love Yourself and Sometimes Other People, I go through not just how to love ourselves, but there is the other people part, like how do we love dating in today's world where there's so many different options and choices? How do we love falling in love? Which is such an interesting term when you think about it, because we could have said strolling into love, walking into love, but we choose to use this term falling in love, as if we are falling off a cliff, and ideally the other person's falling in love too, so they're falling right alongside us. So they're scary and liberating, and it's a very juicy topic. Long-term relationships, sort of the basic, applying the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism to relationships. Looking at topics like Maitri, loving kindness, offering ourselves the root of love for ourselves, and then befriending ourselves so we can think of loving other people. Compassion, karuna, the desire to relieve the suffering of others through understanding. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, understanding is the other name of love. If you don't understand, you can't love. There's the tool of mudita, sympathetic joy, because we're there with another being when they suffer, but we're also there with them when they are happy. It's both. And then equanimity, upeksha, which can sometimes be translated as inclusiveness. And it's the idea that when you love one person, it's almost like a gateway drug. It's an opportunity for you to open your heart further in order to love everyone, all beings. So perhaps I should close with a quote by His Holiness the Karmapa, the head of the Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, where he said, I want to share with you a feeling I have. I feel that my love does not have to remain within the limitations of my own life or body. I imagine that if I am no longer in the world, my love could still be present. I want to place my love on the moon and let the moon hold my love. Let the moon be the keeper of my love, offering it to everyone, just as the moon sends its light to embrace the whole earth. So the more we are able to love ourselves, the more we are able to express love to those in our life, people we like, people we don't like, the millions of people that we don't know very much at all. So This is my request of you. Please love today. Please love yourself, for you're basically good enough and capable enough to do whatever you want to do. Develop faith in your worthiness of love, and share your heart with whomever you encounter. Even if we died tomorrow, we have today to do it, and that is more than enough. We can make our love like the moon and send it out to embrace the whole earth. So this is the weekly meditation challenge video. So what I would like to challenge you to do in this coming week is to notice when you shut down your heart. Something triggers you and you do not feel like you can love. And in that moment, question whether you have to shut down. Question whether you can just remain open to whoever is right in front of you, whatever emotions might be there. And if in that moment you might feel a sense of tenderness, vulnerability, or love. So noticing when we shut down, noticing, questioning whether we have to, and then trying as much as possible to remain open to that person or that situation, to see if we can find vulnerability, tenderness, or love. Thank you all for joining with me in this longer video, and I hope that you're able to check out the book. If you are so moved, I would love to hear from you what you think of it. It's always terrifying to release a new book into the world and see if it actually connects with anyone. And it looks like we even have a bonus guest coming over to the video. If you can't love yourself and you can't love other human beings, I'm going to offer you this image of a very cute puppy, because this is something that I wake up to every day and inspires love in me. Maybe it will inspire love in you too. We match today. If you are also inspired, and this is not for everyone, I understand, but if you're inspired to share the news of this new book coming out via Facebook, Twitter, social media, email, calling your friends, yelling it from the rooftops, whatever you would like to do, I would really appreciate it. It's, as I said, terrifying to release this thing, but it's always heartwarming to know that there's support in this endeavor, that I'm not doing it alone. So thank you all so much for watching, and I wish you a pleasant week.